having an election in the fall, so we'll have a brand new Congress in January. So one of the things that they do at the beginning of the Congress, they'll have, member briefings and sort of getting new members up to speed. So, if you were to be invited to brief the new members, what advice could you give them with respect to how to put together, a bipartisan effort to reform Social Security?
Yeah, so I would start my speech and discussion with them is that first thing is you cannot say you love America unless you love its people, and you cannot love its people unless you love its children. And so therefore, anything you do today will have an impact on generations to follow. So keep that in mind every single time you do something. Second thing is what I mentioned earlier. If something is not politically feasible, it's just not feasible. And so you need to get that out of your mind, and you have to figure out how you can create something in such a divided country and divided Congress that is politically feasible. In other words, what can both sides bring to the table that they want or need in any legislation or reform to get this done? And in Social Security, it's pretty straightforward. Republicans are going to want some change in either the COLA or the age, and Democrats are going to want some reforms on revenue and on poverty. And so you kind of set out what those things are, get them on a whiteboard, and then you begin to talk about, well, how can Republicans fix this revenue thing in a way that is acceptable to them? And how can Democrats help fix these benefit reforms in a way that's acceptable to them? And you begin to negotiate it out. And it was so fascinating, Steve, because I would be in meetings with the Problem Solvers Caucus, which, by the way, was a caucus that I helped start. And we would be able to get to agreement in that room, in the privacy of the room. But when I finally wrote the legislation, based on all these discussions, people were still fearful. So the last thing I would say is stop being afraid of your own shadow. Good policy makes for good politics. If you actually solve a problem for the American people, you'll be rewarded for it, not penalized. And then I do believe, and I think this is a really critical spot, you've got to get the DCCC, the NRCC, the political campaigns in the House and Senate to lay down their sword and say, we're not going to demagogue this, and you've got to get the White House to do it too. Because the minute any side offers some reform, the other side just jumps all over it and tries to make a campaign issue out of it. And going to my very first point, you can't love your country doing that.